Most people are either taking photos or videos on something like this or their smartphone. But if you're like me and from time to time would like to achieve or have that nostalgic vintage look to your footage, I think I've got the perfect solution for you. So if you've been around for this channel any amount of time, you'll know that I'm trying to dial in certain skills. And one of them is color grading. So along that line of thinking, one of the things that has been most frustrating when thinking about color grading is the fact that when you're just starting off and you have no concept of how any of this kind of stuff works, it can be very frustrating and daunting. And sometimes I talk to a lot of people that are just starting out as well. They don't even want to touch log footage, log profiles, and want to stick to Rec 709 because it just looks so foreign and so alien. And so I'm a huge fan of any company or developer that can create a plugin that allows the workflow to be simplified. Now, I have been on a long adventure, a very in-depth adventure of trying to find these plugins that would simplify the workflow and allow beginners and even more experienced people to be able to use them efficiently, especially if you're like me and you're trying to put out one video every single day on Instagram. I'm actually posting twice there now. If you're following me there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And then one video on YouTube every week. That's a lot of work that can be done and simplified if you just have a tool that can actually break it down a lot more easily for you and actually direct you on how to color grade faster, especially if you're working with log profiles. So actually, I want to say about a week or two ago, this company called Dehancer reached out to me. Now, they are not sponsoring this video. All they basically did is, and there's no money exchange as well, all they basically did was send me the product in exchange for an honest review. I did appreciate that they said they wanted an honest review, me not holding back, because they wanted to be able to see if there was any valid feedback of things that they can adjust and opportunities that take advantage of to make the product a lot better. So I really appreciate that. So here's my honest review. I've been able to play with this for a little while now, very extensively, especially since I am putting out a video every single day on Instagram and one on YouTube. Now, I do want to preface this video by saying I have no experience with anything vintage, nostalgic, and just film-like material. I know that there are a lot of plugins and a lot of softwares out there, especially with photo, that you can kind of give a nostalgic and vintage feel to it. I always found that a little weird because I think if you're going to go off and make film-looking stuff, you should be doing it on an actual film camera. Call me a purist. It's not something I have any experience in. So when this company approached me, I found it kind of odd, not because of them, but because of me. I was just like, this is what I believe in, but it's kind of weird, and I don't really want to edit my photos and videos looking like it was shot on a film camera, especially since I'm going to be real. I've never shot on a Super 8 or anything film related. So I thought, let me just give this a try and see what happens. The worst that can happen is I just don't like it. You know, that's my honest opinion. Well, I will say this. I was very surprised. We're going to go through in just a second the things that I really, really appreciate about this tool, and then some critiques that just want you to be on the lookout for in case you decide to purchase this product. Now, I will also say they gave me this product for life, so I'll get all the updates as well. And then they gave me obviously in exchange for a review, and then they gave me a code so that by the end, I'll let you know what my recommendation is. And then if you decide to go and purchase this after watching this review, you can use my code at checkout, Rios, R-I-O-S. I'll put it on the screen there for you, Rios, for 10% off your purchase. They have a bunch of different little products there that you can choose, or the whole package, the whole plugin that comes with all these different effects that we're going to take a look at. Also, I will be including chapters throughout the video, so feel free to jump along to any part of the video that is more interesting to you or more relevant. But with that, let's get into it. So I already have some footage in here that we're going to play around with. It's just a quick 15-second shot of me walking into frame, and it's just a lake in the background. And the neat thing, like I said earlier, is that with a tool like this, and there's other tools that I've discovered that I'll be reviewing in the future, but for this instance, we're going to talk about just Dehancer. Now, the goal of Dehancer is obviously to make it look dehanced. So today's footage is looking more crispy than ever. 8K, 12K, you've got all this kind of stuff. You can go all, you've got all the Ks there. But the point of this is to dehance the footage, make it look like a simpler time. You're shooting in a film out of a film camera, and it's just nostalgic. So that's the point of it. So I love how on this tool, it walks you through step by step on what you would need to do in order to perfect your frame. Before I figured out these plugins and that they existed, I was having to learn I was having to learn how to color correct, convert from log to Rec 709, and then Rec 709 into importing LUTs and color grading. I didn't know there was a difference. Tools like this help you realize that, and also in a way kind of teach you the workflow, so that if you ever decided to move away from a plugin like this, you can kind of get a better idea of what you would have to do manually on your own if you didn't have these plugins. So what you would do in this situation is you, over here on the right side, input. So here I'm actually choosing, you can choose the camera, or you can choose just with Rec 709. So you can use this on something that maybe was not shot with a log profile, and just, you know, add the effects on it as well. So it encompasses a lot of things, pretty much anything you can record with. So I'll choose Canon R8, and then with this I shot on Cinema Gamut. Actually, there you go, you saw on the screen there, it's actually going to format it to that, and then you can begin color correcting. So here you'll change the composition, make it a little cooler. I'm going to go through this a little quickly, probably not the exact look that I would want on this shot, but just to show you what I really enjoyed about this. First, make it look like what it looked like in real life. So you can go back to that time if there was, you know, a certain amount of greens or colors, or just make it look like it would have looked like before. So in that way, it gives you a good base to then add effects to it without just blowing out the image or making it look unrealistic. So after that, and here's the neat thing too, after you do that, you have all these effects that you can actually enable. The neat thing that I really enjoyed about this, and you know, good for you, Dehancer, was the fact that you actually don't have to enable all of these. I actually ended up using 2 or 3 more than all the other ones. And I thought at first I was going to have to enable all of them and then just maybe minimize the ones I didn't want to, but you still have the effect on screen and have to, you know, live with it. But that's one of the neat things that I really like, is that not only can you color correct, but now you can go in and be very specific with what effect you want to use. The 2, or the 3 really, that I use the most is, where is it? So film. Obviously, not knowing too much about these film profiles, my wife is shooting on Kodak Gold 200, so she's just now getting into it, but that's the only profile that I'm familiar with. So I'll click Gold 200, but you can actually choose whatever you want. It'll make the image actually look as if it was shot on that type of film. Oh, you got to enable it first. So you'll hit enable, and then it'll actually change the frame to what it would look like if you shot it on that profile. So Kodak Gold 200 gives a little bit of a warmer tint to it. I like that. It's also kind of a little desaturated, so that's also a little filmic, and I like that. So that's one that I'll use. If you ever wanted to take it off, look how easy it is. Just enable, disable. And then you can add the push or pull, so that's basically underexpose or overexpose it. Nice touch there. Now, again, a bunch of different effects that you know, you can play around with. So another one too that a lot of people are definitely going to use is film grain. If you're shooting out of one of these cameras, you're going to expect a little bit of noise on the camera, so you can always enable that and choose a wide variety of different profiles. Let's just say 8mm ISO 50. So you can see it pop up on screen there, and then you can add or decrease the amount. So we'll just kind of go a little on the extreme side. We'll leave it there. Now, the other one that I really use a lot, the second one, is Halation. I love the way that color just bleeds over images and just really gives it a nostalgic feel. So depending on the shot, if it lends to it, then I'll enable it. I don't think this was going to enable or allow it too much. Yeah, it's not really going to give the effect that I want. But it is one that I definitely use a lot whenever I know that I'm shooting in a certain area where there's light coming around the corner or from a very targeted source. So that's one that I use a lot. I'll enable it if I need it, disable it if I don't. And then the last one, film damage, is also pretty nice. I like that. Now, the last one that I really enjoyed was the Overscan. And so this was nice too, because I'll go ahead and enable it right now. This is nice because I'm a huge fan of sound design. Now, I know that in the past I've talked about that I just love sounds. I love just sounds that you can almost feel and taste. It's just, it sounds weird, but I just love it. And this is what gives me an opportunity to really mess with that. So I want to give myself a lot of motivation to be able to use sounds in my videos that draw the viewer in, that make you feel engaged, like you're actually there. When I throw one of these effects on there and I just play it, it makes no sense with no sound. Because when you see something like this, you want to hear a click. You want to hear like a projector sound kind of running in the background, like this is kind of glitching a little bit. You want to hear some shuffling sounds of a camera moving around. So it motivates you a lot to be able to be able to get creative with sound like that. And So I don't know if that's something that Dehancer was intentional about, thought about, but for me, that's been one of the things that I really enjoyed. And on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of them. I use a lot of, I use this effect. Wow, let's back up. On Instagram, you're going to see that I actually use this effect a lot, and not for the whole duration of the film, but maybe like if I have a 10-second clip, 1 second out of that, I'll actually clip it and then put that effect on there, so it looks like the camera just glitched a little bit, and then I get to put in sound, so it feels nostalgic. I know that word is overused a lot, but that's one thing that I really enjoy that feature. It makes me really excited about using this one. I try not to overdo it because things like this are pretty special, but I can see how it would definitely be effective in storytelling if you're trying to give some kind of meaning to your story. So well done, Dehancer. Now, one thing that I did not expect that I really, really enjoyed in this tool is the LUT Generator. There's already a way to create LUTs in Davinci Resolve, and I'm sure in other editing softwares. But they make it very simple. So once you've selected all the different effects you want and the extremities of them, or whatever you want to enable, you can actually convert it into a LUT, export it, and then bring it back to use at a later date. That's pretty nice too for some of us who shoot in the same constant lighting conditions. So I shoot in a lot of nature, a lot of greens, and I typically like to bring out the camera when it's foggy and moody out there. I'm shooting across the same kind of lighting conditions most of the time. This feature has helped me a lot because rather than going through and actually trying to replicate an image that I might have liked in another video, I can just go ahead and save it, and when I shoot in a very similar condition, I just throw it on a node. And that would just prohibit me from creating all these crazy node trees that you see, and as a beginner you look at these node trees and you're like, it's daunting. It makes you want to not have to get into shooting log and correcting and color grading it. So this is one of the things that I think once you really start diving into it and exploring it, it actually encourages you to actually color grade a little bit more and save it. And then, like I said earlier, when you start working through a plugin like this and seeing the flow that it actually directs you in taking in order to come up with a good image, in turn, it actually ends up teaching you a little bit more on the manual side. Like if you weren't working with a plugin, how to actually color correct and grade without this. Because although these plugins use different terms for their workflow, it's kind of the same idea whenever you go into manually starting to color grade on, like, for example, Davinci Resolve, starting with, with the wheels, moving around the gain, the gamma, and the lift, and then color correcting. So it will simplify the process for you. And I think these are really great tools to actually begin learning how to color correct and grade. A very nice feature that they do have as well, Dehancer, is an iPhone. I'm pretty sure they might have an Android one as well for Android, but for iPhone, they have an editing app. Now, I know that a lot of people are probably going to think, like, if you're already editing photos, you're most likely doing it on one of the bigger guys, like Lightroom, things like that. And so I didn't really think I was going to be taking advantage of their iPhone app, and they're talking. It's apparently a newer product of theirs, and so they gave it to me for a year. It'll expire after that, and then I'll just have to continue paying for it. But I was actually surprised when I first jumped into it. I was kind of turned off a little bit by not wanting to use it. But what I actually ended up doing was I use it as an extension of my editing process. So I do everything in Lightroom. I have my own presets, I have my own workflow, and I can edit photos really quick in Lightroom. But if I wanted to achieve maybe a certain flat effect or maybe desaturate it in a way that looks a little bit more nostalgic, I actually ended up completing all my editing in Lightroom, save it, and then just put those final touches in the Dehancer app. I think it's actually called, what is it called? Dehancer Alpha. So I would probably recommend looking at that if that's something that, if editing film is one of those things that's really up your alley. Especially, with photos. I mean, I think it would lend really nicely to your editing process. It does follow the same exact workflow, or almost a very similar one, to the video software. So if you get familiar with video editing, the photo side is going to be very similar, the same kind of effects, the same kind of workflow. So I enjoyed it in that regard. Maybe after a year, I may not download it again, may or may not. I'm still debating on it because I was actually pleasantly surprised. But just a thought there to maybe check out if you're not into video editing, photo maybe up your alley. And I was pretty impressed by it, especially as an extension already. And you can do everything on there pretty much that you can do in Lightroom, except for maybe some masking and things like that. But that's why I say like it may be a good extension to your workflow rather than your entire workflow to be built on that. But that's just me. You know, I could be proven wrong for sure. The only two recommendations that I would give to the developer for this kind of software, and they're not the most major thing. Again, they've really put a lot of time into this software, and I'm thoroughly impressed. And anyway, I'll just get into it. The first one would just be, you know, as the camera input, there is not an option for the DJI Air 3. I think there's one in there called Mavic 3 for the input of the camera. And or it says, I think it's called Maverick Air. I'm not sure if that's the same thing. So if it is, my apologies. You know, ignore that point. But obviously putting that in there, especially since the DJI Air 3 is a very popular drone for everybody wanting to get into, you know, more of the higher end drones before hitting the Mavic series, because those can definitely break the bank if you're not ready for that. But that Air 3 is really a good middle of the way drone that I think a lot of people are starting to use nowadays, especially as they're wanting to upgrade from the mini series into the Mavic. But again, maybe don't have the budget for the Mavic, being that's like almost twice the amount of the Air 3. That'd be my only feature. And I specifically shoot on the Air 3. I use that religiously. And then again, this is probably just a little too nuanced, or maybe just a little not petty, but not necessary for people like me. And I can't be the only one. Maybe a 1 or 2 word descriptor in parentheses next to the plugins for whatever feature you're about to enable. So for example, like halation. Actually, no, a better one would be bloom. So there's an effect in here called bloom. I had no idea what it was before this, and I had to do a little bit of research. Maybe a 1 or 2 word descriptor next to it, because I understand you only have so much real estate, might help people stay a little bit more comfortable in this. I can see how some people maybe like would download this plugin and then not want to mess with the other ones because maybe they don't want to research what they do, what effect they have. I don't know. It may just encourage some people to just know, okay, I know what bloom is. Do I want that? Yes or no? And then move on or enable it. So again, these two features are not going to really make or break my thoughts on this. I'm on board with this. I love Dehancer. It's great. One of many plugins that are making it very simple to actually color correct and grade your footage and not make you feel like you're just in over your head. So I fully recommend this one. I love it. So those would be the only 2 recommendations, but not the worst thing in the world. So just a brief summary, because that was so much, and I've been rambling for how long? Golly, 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to try and simplify this. So my likes for this plugin. Do I approve? Do I disapprove? Here are my likes. Simple, straightforward. Gives you easy input of the camera that you're wanting to use and quickly directs you on how to adjust for that and correct that in post. Easy walkthrough of the workflow. Gives you the option to use all or none, or maybe just one, rather than thinking you have to use all of the features and then discourage you from even using this plugin to begin with. You can create your own LUT, save it for future reference, and then just use it all over again without having to try and replicate what it is you did in the first place. You get all the future updates as they update their program and add or maybe refine some kinds of features. So you get that for free moving forward once you make that lifetime purchase. And then on top of that, their iPhone editing photo app is actually pretty useful, especially for me as a supplement or as an add-on to my already established workflow if you want to add a little bit more of an effect to it, just to give it a little bit more character storytelling. Any dislikes that I may have of this as a quick recap. If you don't know anything about film, just know, heads up, you'll be finding yourself researching a lot of things before you even enable these because you want to know how they interact with your film. So just know that there's going to be a little bit of research done as you're going through this editing process to know how it works, rather than enabling everything, thinking that enabling everything it's going to make it look good. Then you render and you realize this footage actually sucks. You got to do the work. You got to do a little bit of research and figure out what all these terms mean. Then you can meaningfully apply them to your film or not based on your interests and your likes. Overall, yes, I would recommend this. I use it pretty much every day. There are some days where I don't use it, but even then, not even so much to make it film-like, but there are just some effects that I really like without enabling a film quality to it that just give me a little bit more that I can't do on Davinci Resolve. So I'm going to keep using it, and I would definitely recommend it. And if you're curious and you want to look into it, visit Dehancer. I'll link the website in the description of this video. If you do end up deciding to purchase it and you want to support this channel and you want 10% off your purchase, it doesn't have to be the first one, it's any purchase. Use code Rios at checkout. It'll give you 10%. It supports this channel, so I really appreciate it if you do. Thank you so much. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if this is going to help you out. But other than that, we will see you guys in the next one.